WinEst provides the power of a database-driven estimating system with the flexibility of a spreadsheet that allows you to make very, very fast modifications, global changes, and allows you to play what-if scenarios with the data contained in the estimate. The database technology allows your company to capture its unique estimating methodologies in the way that your database is set up. Navigating the estimating system is very, very simple. You either use the file pull-down menus that you typically would find in any Windows-based application, or you can use the buttons on the toolbar. The unique thing about the toolbar in WinEst is while the product ships with a default toolbar and set of options, the options that you see on the toolbar can be changed. You can add your own options to the toolbar. What you typically would do is add those buttons that you use the most frequently. Those features would then be accessible with just a single mouse click. Here I'm just cycling through the different filters that I've added to the toolbar. The different filters allow me to see different views of the data contained in the estimate. It is very, very easy to use WinEst. In fact, most of your work is done with the 3 buttons in the upper left corner. The takeoff button is used to add items or assemblies from the database. So clicking the Add button simply allows you to browse the database and select the items and assemblies you're looking for. The estimate sheet view is where you go to review the work that you've done at any point in time. I can see a summarized view of the estimate, or I could look at the details contained in the estimate. This is where I can change any one of those details and see the extensions take place immediately. The totals page is just that. It's a summarized list of totals for the estimate at this point in time. You'll see one total for each category in the estimate. My labor total, material total, subtotal, equipment, and other. But it's also the totals page where I go to set up my markups or my indirect cost. You can see here that I have a net total for the estimate of over $56 million. But I've added a series of indirects or markups which now take my estimate up to $78 million. There are several different ways to create an estimate in WinEst. First, I can go to the File pull-down menu and select New. After creating the new estimate, I most likely would go to the File pull-down menu and enter general information about this estimate. I can give the estimate a project name. I could put in information, for example, like the size of the project and a unit of measure. This will give me a cost per unit on the totals page. It's very important to put in a size and a unit here to get a roll-up on the totals page. I can even put in things like a default labor table driving the labor rates for any trades or crafts that I have in this estimate. I can do the same for the different pieces of equipment that I might use in this estimate. I can also enter information about the client or the owner. WinEst also provides 30 custom fields allowing you to capture any additional data that you don't find on the first 2 tabs in the general information page. I can accept that information and continue to move on with my estimate. Another way to create an estimate in WinEst, in a very fast and flexible way, and a way to provide some standardization across the organization, is to create an estimate using a template estimate. And a great place to store template estimates is in that estimate revision log we called Enterprise Data Manager. When I launch Enterprise Data Manager, I can see that I have a tree of projects already listed. Under the first project folder, I can see I actually have a folder called Template Estimates. If I select the estimate template for a healthcare project, I can highlight that template, click Open Revision, and now I just opened up an estimate using a template from Enterprise Data Manager. You'll notice this can be time-saving because in this particular estimate that I just opened, you'll notice that I have general conditions already listed in this template. These would be the general conditions specific to a healthcare project. The quantities are all gone in my template, knowing that I would populate those quantities for this specific estimate. When I go to the totals page, I also notice that this template estimate is already populated with a number of indirect costs or markups. Things like miscellaneous supplies, material markup, overhead profit, sales tax, and even a performance bond. So you can see that creating an estimate from a template allows me to preload that template with all of those items and markups that are specific to that project type. You can either create a database from scratch, import data from your existing data to create a database, or you can select from a library of databases that are provided optionally by WinEst. To browse the database, I'll click the Takeoff button. Next I will click Add. You'll notice I can window into the database at the item level or the assembly level. The real productivity gain is by accessing the database at the assembly level, selecting the assembly that I want. In this particular case, I'm going to select the slab on grade assembly. When I choose that assembly, it prompts me for some default values. On this estimate, I'm going to override some of those defaults with a stronger strength of concrete. I'll accept these values and then tell the system that I'm finished entering those specification values. Next, I'll enter a location description. That allows me to create an estimate that can be organized and sorted by location. The system will make sure that I spelled that location correctly. When I close the window, now I can come in and quantify this by entering the dimensional information. I can either type in that dimensional information directly in the formula variables, or I can just as easily go to the two-dimensional takeoff system from WinEst called Virtual Takeoff and go in and get the area electronically simply by tracing the shape to get the area. Very, very quickly getting the area, dropping that value into the area cell on the right-hand side of the screen. So you'll notice a little over 11,000 square feet. Next, I'll tell it I have 8 inches of depth, 4 inches of base. I can even recall the perimeter to drop the perimeter into the appropriate cell. I'll put in the information remaining for the form work. Add to quantity, and when I go back to WinEst, just that quickly, I have quantified all the items necessary to develop that slab. WinEst provides an unlimited number of views of the data contained in the estimate. We refer to these views as filters. You can actually set up conditions on filters that limit the data that you see. For example, if I click on the labor filter, I can see just those items in the estimate that contain labor cost. If I click on the material filter, I see just those items in the estimate that contain material cost. I can also look at the 95 master format view of the items in this estimate, the traditional 16-level breakdown. Or I can go to the 2004 master format view and see the new CSI coding format that went into effect in 2004. It's in these views that I can quickly modify the data. For example, if I want to adjust the productivity for a number of items contained in the estimate, I can move to the items that I choose to adjust. I can highlight one or many of those items, do a right mouse click, use the modify option, and maybe I want to adjust the productivity downwards by 10%. I make that adjustment, the extensions take place immediately, and I have an unprecedented audit trail showing all of the changes that were made to that item over the life of this estimate. And in this particular case, it tells me the adjustment that I just made. I can also take any of those items, one item or the entire estimate, and I can choose to take those items and update the database. So you notice I have an option to update the database with those new options, or I can update the estimate if data in the database is more current than what I currently have in the data in the estimate. WinEst provides a very powerful estimate revision log called Enterprise Data Manager. Most companies have estimates that move through critical phases of the estimating process. Those gates that estimate moves through can be saved as revisions that I can always get back to at any point in time. We call that application Enterprise Data Manager. When I launch Enterprise Data Manager from WinEst, I see a tree that's built of my active estimates and the revision within each of those estimates. You'll notice here that I've got my healthcare templates that we looked at earlier, but I also have real projects like the Austin Medical Center. And you'll notice I've got the initial budget was saved as a revision. I saved the estimate when I had drawings at 50% complete. I also saved the estimate when I had a final estimate. Now, as you can imagine, this project tree could get quite large over time with all the active projects and revisions. But I have the ability to filter that list. So I can quickly come in to my filter and tell Enterprise Data Manager to build a tree of just those projects located in the Northeast. And some of the projects disappear. I can also build a filter of just the healthcare projects. And just that quickly, another project disappears from my list. I can also organize my project tree by teams. So saving those revisions in Enterprise Data Manager ensures that the organization's active estimates and all of its revisions are stored in this Microsoft SQL database that is the backbone of Enterprise Data Manager. And every time that server where that database is backed up, I know that the organization's active estimates and revisions are getting backed up at the same time.